The desert night was silent, moonlight silvering the dunes like frozen waves. Captain Edward "Eddie" Rains of the British Special Air Service crouched behind a dune, peering through binoculars. The target lay ahead, the Luftwaffe's remote airfield at Sidi Haneish, deep in Axis-held Libya. Dozens of German bombers sat in perfect formation like iron vultures asleep in the sand. Rains whispered into the field radio, targets confirmed. 30-plus aircraft, minimal guards. No signs of patrol. The voice crackled back, "You know what to do. No mistakes. Good luck, Ghost." It was July 1942. Rommel's Afrikaans Corps had pushed deep into Egypt. British supply lines were stretched thin. If the Luftwaffe continued hammering desert convoys, the Eighth Army would break. The only way to shift the balance was to take the war behind enemy lines. That's where Rains came in. He was 32, former Oxford history lecturer turned saboteur, hardened by the Desert War. He led a band of 15 men, misfits, adventurers, ex-boxers, and burglars, each one hand-picked. They were the SAS. And tonight, they were going to destroy 37 German planes. Crawling forward under cover of darkness, the team split into pairs. Each man carried a sack of Lewis bombs, small, powerful charges designed for quick sabotage. Rains moved with his second-in-command, Sergeant Tommy Knox, a Scottish demolitions expert with nerves of iron. As they reached the edge of the runway, the low growl of a guard's voice made them freeze. A German sentry stood 20 yards away, smoking. Rains pulled his revolver but paused. A sudden gust of wind sent sand swirling into the air. The sentry turned away, shielding his face. They slipped past. In silence, the team fanned out. Like ghosts in the desert, they planted bombs on landing gears, fuel tanks, and cockpit hatches. Time fuses, 30 minutes. At bomber number 19, Knox stopped. "Eddie, this one's got extra guards." Sure enough, a group of German pilots stood around the aircraft, laughing and drinking schnapps. One of them stumbled off to relieve himself. Rains exhaled. "We skip it. Can't risk alerting them." Knox frowned but nodded. Time was short. They moved on. Bombs planted. All 37 planes set. 30 minutes later, the team regrouped behind the dunes. Rains did a silent head count. 14. One missing. "Where's Ellis?" Rains whispered. Private David Ellis, the youngest of the group, just 19, with freckles and too much heart, hadn't returned. "Last I saw him, he was on the far end of the field," said Knox. "Maybe he got turned around." Rains hesitated. The bombs were about to go off. They couldn't wait. But he couldn't leave the boy behind either. "I'll go," he said. "Knox, get the rest back to the trucks. If I'm not out in 5, leave." Knox's jaw tightened. Don't be a hero." Rains turned and vanished into the dark. Back at the field, he saw Ellis crouched beside a Messerschmitt. The boy had planted his last charge but dropped his torch. "I couldn't see the fuse timing," Ellis whispered, breathless. "Didn't want to mess it up." Rains smiled despite himself. "Come on, lad. Time's up." They sprinted together, sand flying behind their boots. Then it began. A thunderous boom tore through the night, followed by another, then another. The horizon lit up in orange and white as one German bomber after another exploded, shattering into flaming wreckage. 37 planes, gone in minutes. The desert erupted in chaos. Screams in German, sirens, searchlights slicing the darkness. Rains and Ellis hit the sand as bullets cracked overhead. "We've got to move," Rains barked. They zigzagged across the dunes, ducking gunfire and weaving through burning debris. One German motorcycle crew spotted them and gave chase. Reaching a narrow ravine, Rains shoved Ellis in. "Get to the truck convoy. I'll draw them off." Ellis hesitated. "Sir, no. That's an order." He turned and ran toward the motorcyclists, firing his revolver and drawing their attention. Ellis disappeared into the dunes. Rains dove behind a wrecked fuel barrel, reloading. The motorbike roared toward him, but then a burst of machine gun fire from the ridge tore through the rider. It was Knox and the team, circling back. "You're a bloody idiot!" Knox shouted, hauling Rains up. Nice timing, Rains grinned, limping slightly. All 15 men made it to the convoy. Dust flew as they raced into the night, enemy flares bursting behind them. At dawn, they reached a British forward base. General Montgomery himself arrived to debrief them. "You're telling me 15 of you destroyed 37 enemy aircraft?" "Yes, sir," Rains replied. Montgomery's expression barely changed, but the flicker in his eyes spoke volumes. "You may have changed the course of this desert war, Captain." A week later, British convoys moved with far less threat from the skies. Rommel's momentum slowed. The Eighth Army rallied. The raid was never officially recognized, too secret, too dangerous. But in SAS folklore, it became legend. Back in Cairo, the men rested. Ellis was promoted. Knox, despite his usual grumbling, started training new recruits. One night, Rains stood alone on the roof of the barracks, looking out at the city lights. He remembered the screams. The fire. The boy who almost died. "You did well, Edward," came a voice. It was Colonel Sterling, founder of the SAS. "You disobeyed protocol going back for Ellis. But it made the difference. He'll be a fine leader one day." Rains nodded. "It was worth it." Sterling chuckled. "Do you know what the Germans are calling it?" "What?" "Der Shatter a Griff. The Shadow Raid." Rains smiled. "Fitting. But even legends have scars." 3 weeks later, Ellis died in a minefield on a supply run. Rains personally recovered his body. At the burial, Knox read the boy's letter home. He'd written it the day after the raid, never mailed it. "It was the best night of my life, Mum. I did something that mattered. I think I've found my place in the world." The silence was heavy. Rains looked at the small wooden cross and whispered, "You did more than most men ever will." In the final months of 1942, the tide began to turn. With Rommel in retreat, the Allies launched Operation Torch. SAS teams, emboldened by the success at Sidi Haneish, executed more raids across North Africa, crippling Axis infrastructure. But none were as daring or devastating as the night 37 planes turned to ash. Years later, long after the war, Rains wrote a memoir. He titled it, "The Night of the Ghosts." In one passage, he wrote, "We weren't heroes. We were shadows. Men sent to do what no one else would. And in those few hours in the dark, we made history." The airfield at Sidi Haneish was never rebuilt. To this day, in the burning sands of Libya, fragments of twisted metal still lie half-buried. Scorched wreckage of war machines once thought invincible. And every so often, a gust of desert wind stirs the sand just enough to reveal them. Silent witnesses to the night a handful of ghosts rewrote the rules of war.